So let's sit up nice and tall and just close the eyes. And just become aware of your breath. Use the breath as an object of concentration. And just begin to concentrate on the inhale, concentrate on the exhale, and just become aware of all the qualities of the breath. As you inhale, notice that the chest expands, the lungs expand, and there's a gift that is received. And as you exhale, notice that the chest naturally contracts, the lungs gently release, and there's a sense of surrender or relaxation. And so just focusing on the breath in and the breath out on purpose. And as you're focusing on the breath, also notice what happens as you're focusing. Just have a gentle awareness of the rest of the body. And some of the things that you might notice are that little tensions begin to dissolve. The face begins to soften. The mind becomes more quiet and more content. And don't lose the concentration on the breath. Just allow that concentration to also include whatever small shifts or large shifts are happening in the body and mind as a result. And then placing the right hand on the heart and the left hand over the right. Together we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. Om. And for just a few more moments, concentrating on the quality of the breath. The breath in, the breath out. The gift of the breath. How it affects us. And then releasing that practice and gently opening the eyes. And just notice how you feel now that the eyes are open. Notice how when you look at things, they have a deeper depth to them. A little bit more detail, perhaps. And in the vision itself, in the act of seeing, there's another softness, another layer of softness, which means there's another layer of acceptance. And these layers are very, very thin layers. They're very tiny layers, and there's many. It's like an onion, Seems to be never ending. We can always accept more. We can always see more. We can always experience more detail in what it is that we are observing, always. And so we should never come to these practices in yoga thinking, I've got this, as if there were no place else to go, because there's always a deeper level to go to. And so today's talk is going to focus on chapter 3 of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So Patanjali is oftentimes called the father of yoga. He didn't create the yoga practices or the concept of yoga. He just wrote it down. And as far as we know, he was one of the earliest ones to write down the technical information about yoga and about what one can expect from yoga, the obstacles that one will encounter, the definition of yoga, and the final experience of what's called kaivalya, or liberation. And so he wrote this down, and in many ways he made yoga much more accessible to the common person, to the non-priest, non-Brahmin. Because yoga was originally focused at the holy, at least for some period of time. It was the priests and the Brahmins that had, the information, the secrets. And your common person was busy working, raising their families, that type of thing. So once Patanjali wrote the Yoga Sutras, then they became a bit more accessible. This information became a bit more accessible. So we'll start with what is yoga. Well, according to Patanjali, yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. It's like, okay, just stop your mind then. Just stop your mind and you'll experience yoga. But we all know that that's not an easy thing to accomplish, if it can even be accomplished. Because first we have to look at what he means by that. What does he mean by the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind? Your mind is a thinking mechanism. That's what it does. It's got an imagination, it's got a vision, it's got ideas, it's got memories, and it wants to continually churn through all of those information data bits, It wants to constantly be active within the realm of thinking. So how do you stop a thing that is made for thinking, from thinking? It's probably not entirely possible. So if it's not entirely possible to stop the fluctuations of the mind, then what could Patanjali possibly mean by that definition of yoga? And what I walk away from all of my studies with is that what he's actually saying is that your priority changes and you no longer invest in whatever the mind is thinking about if in fact it's harmful. So if the thoughts of the mind are harmful or have the potential to lead to the behavior that is harmful, the thought that's harmful, or the words that are harmful, the intention that is harmful, then you don't invest in those thoughts. And instead you turn your attention to God. You turn your attention to goodness. You turn your attention to love. You turn your attention to something else. And by turning your attention to something else, you're practicing a few qualities that are inherent in that statement. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuation of the mind. You're turning yourself toward discipline, because to stop the fluctuations of the mind, or at least our interest and investment in those fluctuations, it requires discipline. So we must become disciplined. It requires also a sense of truthfulness, because we need to know what thoughts are harmful and what thoughts are not harmful, and then what thoughts actually bring us closer to understanding our real self, our true self. So truthfulness is another quality that needs to be cultivated by the individual who wishes to experience something like the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. Patience. It doesn't happen overnight. And then when you think you've got it, then you don't. So it's a back and forth thing for a very long time. It's a skill and a mastery that is built little by little by little, like any of the Eastern traditions like Tai Chi or karate. People don't become a third-degree black belt like that. It's years and years, traditionally, years and years and years of practice, Of course, nowadays you can pay your membership and you're kind of guaranteed, at least 1 or 2 elevations a year, maybe more now. But originally, you had to practice side by side with the teacher for a really long period of time in order to prove you had the skill. So that type of dedication requires practice, patience and practice. So 2 more qualities. And dedication, another quality. So I feel that what Patanjali is really saying when he says yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind, he's saying that the yogi, the practitioner or the spiritualist who's interested in knowing God through the vision of yoga, needs to practice these qualities in order to reprioritize the way they use their mind power. And Swami Shivananda actually has a book called Mind Power. Swami Shivananda he's passed on now, Mahasamadhi'd in November of 1963. But he left us with over 300 books of amazing, amazing detailed information. And Mind Power is a wonderful book that talks about the power of the mind and how it can be a detriment or it can be a benefit. But in order for it to be a benefit, we have to practice those qualities and bring the conduct of our mind into a place where it is aligned with the ethics that we wish to live our life by, so that the thoughts are not raging anger and pissed offedness. The thoughts are compassion and empathy and joy and happiness for others and patience and dedication. And then what ends up happening, and Patanjali doesn't talk so much about this, but other scriptures in the yoga tradition do, when we reprioritize the mind, we then bring ourselves closer and closer and closer to a state of understanding something far more magnificent and far more inclusive, far more mysterious, far more expansive. We come closer and closer and closer in relationship to divinity, to what is sacred, and we start to see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is a picture of inclusion. It's a picture of love. It's a picture of patience. It's a picture of being. It's a picture of living a life that is supportive, living a life that is of service, living a life that is knowledgeable of wisdom, not just of 10,000 distracting things. So this yoga, according to Patanjali, the overarching wisdom of yoga, the overarching school, what we can call the capital Y yoga, is the cessation of the fluctuation of the mind. The word yoga actually means union or reunion. And many of the scriptures state that the definition of yoga is reunion with God, reunion with Goddess, reunion with that, whatever you call that. So he goes on in this book to talk about what we can call the little Y yoga, the techniques of yoga. So asana, or your postural practice, those are techniques of yoga. They're also called yoga, but they're not the supreme yoga. They're the techniques that support our journey to the state of reunion, to the state of unity. We have postures, we have breathing practices, we have mudras, we have mantras, we have concentration practices and meditation practices. And every one of these practices, and there are so many more, any one of these practices has the potential to open us up on yet another level, another layer into this realization of the self, into the reprioritizing of the mind so that we are more focused on our own healing and the healing of the world and all the people and beings in this world, and so that we are more focused on love, compassion, empathy, and God consciousness. Otherwise, if they don't have those focuses, if they're not focusing on the cultivation of ethics, then they're just practices. And then your yoga asana or your postures become an exercise routine. But interestingly, even people who, let's just say, go to the gym to practice yoga because they don't want the spirituality, I can't tell you how many of those students end up walking into class here and saying, I don't know what happens when I go to that class. They don't like Om or anything. They don't chant. They don't talk about anything. And yet something is happening. Something is happening just from the mindfulness alone that opens them up to deeper questions. And they end up seeking out, some of them, not all, they end up seeking out a teacher who, or they'll ask that teacher, in case that teacher has that information, who has more information about the secret of this practice. Why does it make me feel this way? How come when I leave my yoga class from the gym, I walk outside and I'm like, oh my God, that sky is blue, those trees are green, life is big. I feel so open. It doesn't matter where a person practices, they will have some kind of an experience. And depending upon how they have cultivated the mind will dictate whether or not they shut that experience down or they open it up to more questions and more inquiry. So the mind is really an important facet in these practices. and where it takes a person. Where it takes a person. So in here, Patanjali lays out an eightfold path. And he states that this eightfold path begins with the yamas and ends with samadhi. So they are in this order: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Yama, niyama, the 10 ethics of being alive. So 10 ethics of being alive. Those 10 ethics are non-harming, truthfulness, non-grasping, self-study, economy of energy, cleanliness, truthfulness, contentment, I think I said truthfulness, discipline, self-study, and God consciousness, or devotion. So those are the 10 ethics that all yogis, or we can even extrapolate out and say all spiritualists, all people should practice. So yama, niyama. Then we have asana. Asana, the postures. They don't come first. They're third in the list. And the only reason why they're third is because Patanjali and all the great teachers who wrote similar texts understood that this physical body can be a hindrance. It can be a hindrance to our awakening for one reason and one reason only: because it suffers. And the asana help alleviate suffering in the body, and therefore help to alleviate suffering in the mind. So the asana have a very important part to play, but it's not the penultimate part. It's not the part. The asana should be used appropriately, depending upon age, location, and condition of health in the body. So not everybody should be standing on their head, and not everybody should be practicing power vinyasa. People should be practicing yoga according to their temperament, according to their physical health and wellness, according to their age, according to several different criteria. You can all come to the same class, but you should practice according to you, and the teacher should be able to guide you in that, providing props and accommodations as necessary. Then we have pranayama, and pranayama is the practice of breathing. So breathing is very important because it's tied directly into the nervous system. And when we breathe yogically, they suggest 6 breaths per minute, either at a 5-5 or a 5-6 or a 4-6 count. So either 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, or 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. If you're a stable person who doesn't have a lot of emotional baggage, 5-5. But if you're an individual who has a little bit of emotional baggage, maybe some trauma from the past, maybe you're a little shaky in some moments or quick-tempered, 4-6. Because 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out cultivates harmony in the nervous system and activates the parasympathetic response, which is the relaxation response. So in yoga, pranayama, or breathing practices, are exquisitely important because they tone the nervous system. And you can't really go beyond this 4th place, and the first 3 are also very difficult, if the nervous system is not being addressed. The next one, pratyahara, is sense withdrawal. So that's a big one. Sense withdrawal. What does that even mean? Detachment. What's that mean? Sounds like a psychological issue. It can be a psychological issue if it's not practiced appropriately. What sense withdrawal is the discipline to take control over one's own senses. So that when you see chocolate on the counter, you don't just take the chocolate because you like the idea of the chocolate. You appreciate the chocolate. You're like, yay, it's there. It's wonderful. Oh, I have good memories of that. But maybe you leave it there because you don't really need it. And if you do take it, you take it in a right mind. And a right mind is a mind of gratitude, a mind of non-greed, a mind of non-harm, truthfulness, non-grasping, self-inquiry, cleanliness, contentment, discipline, and God consciousness. Or at least working toward that God consciousness. So whatever we take, food-wise, should be taken in the mindset of the yama and the niyama. And then it's taken in right relationship. But when it's taken in accordance with the ego, I want, I desire, that belongs to me, then it's not taken in right relationship, and it has the potential to cause more harm to the body and mind than benefit. So the sense withdrawal is really challenging. It's very challenging because we got to get really honest with ourselves. Sense withdrawal is also not being overly involved in the drama of anything. Be involved in the service, but don't be involved in the drama. Now, everybody here, we all know what being involved in drama is. Somebody says, "Did you hear about so-and-so?" "No, tell me all about it." And potentially none of it's true, half of it's not true, some portion of it's not true. It's just elaborated on a few details that may or may not have happened, but the reality is whoever is doing the gossiping has no idea if it's true or not. They're just spreading stories, and they're stories that are potentially harmful. Because gossip is probably 85% harmful, maybe 15% not so harmful or neutral. But people don't tend to gossip positive things. They don't say, "Oh my gosh, did you hear the most amazing thing that happened?" No, that's yeah. Those are the tiny little headlines in the back of the newspaper somewhere on the pages that no one reads. Yeah. So we really grasp onto the drama in life, and that cultivates a sense of disturbance in our body, in our mind, in the energetics of our being. So sense withdrawal also has to do with backing away from that drama and saying, I don't need to gossip. I don't need to see only the negative. I don't need to seek out the things that are wrong. I can make the choice to speak only compassionately, to see only compassionately, to hear compassionately, and to have great empathy for all, because all people are suffering and struggling on some level. And then, when we step out into the world to take action, our action is coming from a different place. It's not coming from a place of anger. It's not coming from a place of hate. It's coming from a place of compassion. It's coming from a greater state of understanding. So sense withdrawal is hard work. But if we want to be functional and healthy in this world, in our service and in our existence in and of itself, it's necessary. Because otherwise we go down the rabbit hole of drama. And that causes more harm than good. So then we move from pratyahara to the last three in this eightfold path. And these last three, Patanjali in chapter 3 calls the SamYama. The SamYama. So the word sam or sama in Sanskrit means same, and yama can mean restraint or expansion, control, or a sense of vastness, like the ultimate truth is so vast, you know. There's some pretty diverse definitions for certain words in Sanskrit. But if we were going to look at this by the most common definition, then these final three of the Eightfold Path, the SamYama, are the disciplines that bring sameness. The disciplines that cultivate sameness. And they are dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Dharana is concentration. Concentration requires discipline. It requires patience. It requires curiosity. It requires dedication. It requires truthfulness. It requires all the yamas and niyamas. Concentration is bringing your awareness to something and becoming very focused on that. So very focused on that everything else around it begins to black out. There's a practice in yoga called tratak meditation. It's really tratak concentration, where you're gazing at either a candle flame or a picture of your avatar of the divine, and you're gazing at it without blinking your eyes, which is very hard in and of itself. and you're just gazing at it. You're just taking in the entirety of it. You're not focusing on like one little part of it. You're trying to take in the entirety of the thing. And by taking in the entirety of the flame of the candle, or the entirety of, let's say, a statue, a murti of Durga or Shiva, what they suggest is that over time you're actually absorbing the qualities of the thing. So through concentrative practice, you begin to absorb the qualities of the thing. Japa mantra does this. You begin to absorb the qualities of the japa, of the mantra that you're repeating over and over and over and over again. And the qualities of the mantra are the qualities of the avatar that they represent. So Om Shri Durgaye Namaha. You are absorbing the qualities of Durga, which are clarity, compassion, nurturance, bravery, courage, strength, straightforwardness, the ability to tame even the wildest of beasts. She sits kind of English side saddle on the lion, and the lion is very subdued under her, very subdued underneath of her, indicating that she has the power to subdue even that which is wild and strong. So when we begin to absorb that through the Tratak meditation, that understanding or that quality, we also over time become able to subdue that which is wild and strong, which in us, the lion is the ego. The lion is the desire. The lion is the judgment. The lion is the anger. The lion is the hate. The lion is that which will harm. So by casting our gaze and concentrating upon the form of Durga, we absorb her qualities. When we cast our gaze on the light of the candle, the qualities that we are absorbing are light. That which brings radiance to the darkness. That which illuminates. When we practice this concentrative practice, as we're gazing, let's just say at the murti of Durga, everything in the peripheral view becomes very fuzzy, and then it blacks out until there's nothing but that object upon which you are gazing, observing. At that moment in time, you may fall into a state called dhyana, meditation. Meditation is not concentration. Meditation is a spontaneously arising state that is next to nothingness. There's a very small remnant of you still there, but it's indescribable and undefinable. It's so small, in fact, that its only job is to disturb you out of that state of meditation. So for those of you who have meditated, what you may have found once or twice, or maybe many times, is that you're sitting and you're breathing and you're concentrating on the visualization of the lotus or the breath or the mantra, and all of a sudden you just stop. And you don't know you've stopped. You just kind of disappear for a little while. And you have no awareness there. Not really. And what ends up happening is that all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, was I sleeping? Oh, no, I don't think I was. Was I sleeping? I must have fallen asleep. But you weren't sleeping. You were sitting straight up. You weren't snoring. What woke you up was the ego saying, excuse me, I'm bored. Could you please get in trouble or something so I have something to do? Could you please cause trouble so I have something to do? Could you please get dramatic and do something? So it disturbed you out of that state of meditation. The ego, when it's not balanced, is a disturbance. So it drove you out of meditation and brought you back into this, aware state, this state of being. So the remnant of the self that is still present in that state of dhyana or meditation is only the part of yourself that pulls you back out again. Now, when you're in that state of meditation, which no one can really define, they call it nothingness, because the ego is nothing there. There's nothing there. There's no blue sky. There's no drama. There's nothing. So it's nothing. It's just peace. In that state, The idea is that then spontaneously arises is a state called samadhi, which is total absorption. Total absorption. And there's many levels of samadhi. The ultimate samadhi is absorption into the God consciousness. And the individual who has attained para samadhi, or supreme samadhi, they will open their eyes back up again, and they will continue to walk in that state. They will continue to walk in a state of God consciousness. And even though they do see the blue sky and the green trees and the beauty and the destruction and the healing and the trauma, even though they continue to see these things, they have complete equanimity to them because they understand it all to be just part of the flow of consciousness in the universe, and they're simply a servant walking through the world. There's some people in the world who claim to be that. I think there's far fewer who actually are. Because could you imagine what it must take for your nervous system to be able to walk through the world healthy, but non-reactive? Always. I don't know. Maybe some of the great, great master teachers through time, maybe Swami Shivananda was one of them. But somebody like the Dalai Lama, who we might bring to the front of our mind, he'll sit there and say, he gets angry. He's human, he gets frustrated, he gets angry, he gets this, he gets that. Thich Nhat Hanh will say the same thing. He's definitely got a greater sense of control than most of us have, right? He's definitely there understanding, but he'll even say, it's not a constant state. It's so hard for it to be a constant state as long as we're in this physical body, because this physical body is constantly changing, and the world this body is walking through is constantly changing. So we're constantly at the mercy of distraction. And distraction will take us away from that state of contentment or peace or self-realization. We're always susceptible to that as long as we're in a physical body. So the Buddhists say, so just become peaceful with the change. Just accept it. Accept it as part of who you are, as part of your experience in this life. And the Tantric practitioners say that too. They say, don't look at the emotional fluctuations as a hindrance, just don't play into them. You're going to have the emotions. They're going to be there. But just don't act on them. If you feel angry, look at the anger. Look at the root cause of the anger and address it. But don't lash out because of the anger. Don't become a reactor. Be a responder, not a reactor. I don't know about you, but if I had a personal emergency and you had to call someone, I would not want you calling a reactor. I would want you calling a responder, somebody who knows how to deal with the situation, somebody who is present and mindful and paying attention on purpose to what needs to be done, and someone who also understands the bigger picture. I used to be an emergency responder with Red Cross. I signed up with Red Cross for about 3 years following 9/11. And I dealt with a lot of the intake with the families that were survivors, families who lost individuals, or survivors who escaped, the peril of that day. And then I went on to do other work with them, like answering house fires and things like that. And the one thing I was just always constantly impressed and inspired by was that so many of the people that I worked with who had been there for a long time, they had such equanimity in the face of death. They weren't cold. They understood the sorrow of it, of course they did. But they had such equanimity, and they were such a support to the people they served because of their equanimity. Just such a beautiful thing. So these three, the 6, 7, and 8 of the Eightfold Path, called the SamYama, because when taken together, these are the penultimate practice, which begin with concentration. They are the practices that we can bring ourselves to in order to experience a heightened level of spirituality, in order to experience a deeper understanding of ourselves, the world we walk through, and the relationship that we have to everything that is, including the divine. These three practices are ideal. they also are very much interrelated to each other, because meditation and samadhi, or dhyana and samadhi, depend upon dharana. They depend upon the concentration practice. That's where they come from. So they're intimately married to one another in a way that the other practices aren't so much. They're interconnected too, but not to the same extent. Is this all making sense? Yeah? Good. So the concentration is important. So how can we bring that into our own day-to-day life? Well, one very simple thing to do is whatever it is that you're doing, be present to it. If you're drinking tea, if you're giving a talk, if you're working in the garden, if you're walking down the street, if you're driving your car, be present to it. Just be present to it. Notice what there is to be noticed. Try not to react to any of it. Take little challenges to yourself, you know? Like the next time that you're in the garden and a bee flies by, don't swat at it. Just be aware of it and notice what it does. Learn about it. Don't be reactive to it. Be responsive to it. If it comes too close, maybe back away a little bit, you know. You keep a healthy boundary. But maybe let it land on you. We had a student here, Raquel. Yeah. We had a student here. Her spiritual name is Isha, which means God. She's so in love with God. So in love with God. So her spiritual name was Isha. That which is in love with God. And she had an allergy to bee stings. And she came, and that year we had some of those, what are they called, Michelle? Mud daubers? Mud daubers? Yeah. We had those and the red ones also, right? Yeah. In the classroom on the other side. And they'd always be flying up in the corner, you know. And so one day she's sitting there, and this one of these wasps is flying around her. And she just puts her hand up like this, and she stays very still. And it landed on her finger. And she just turned her head really slowly and looked at it. And they stared at each other maybe 30 seconds. And then it flew away. And she was so, inspired and just crazy in love with this experience that she had with something that she was previously so deathly afraid of. You know?
This happened to Oksana several weeks ago.
Did it happen to you too, Oksana? Yeah.
The story of the bee. When you were in the Devi sanctuary, you came and landed on you, and you told me a very similar story.
Oh.
And so, another story after that.
So miracles apparently happen in the Devi sanctuary. A lot of communing in the Devi sanctuary with bees, yeah. So she was just so inspired by this that it supported her courage in that moment to concentrate on peace. Supported her in overcoming a fear that had very much driven part of her life up until then, you know? And now that fear is gone. Now her life is a freer place. Does she still have to be mindful? Of course she does. But she doesn't have to be afraid. When we're afraid, our fear drives us to violence. It drives us to harm. It drives us to a state of fight or flight in our nervous systems. When we can use concentration as a practice to overcome our fear and to deepen our understanding, then we alleviate the stress of our nervous system and we literally become healthier, happier people. Literally. Because the nervous system is offloaded, even just a little bit. That gives a little breathing room, a little space that we can fill up with something other than fear. But mind you best fill it up with something, because if you don't, the ego certainly will. And I can guarantee you it won't be pretty. It'll just be more of the same, just under a different disguise. So instead of being afraid of wasps, now you'll be afraid of spiders. You know, you'll attach on to the next story that you hear, and then that'll take up that space. So instead, fill it on purpose with devotion. Fill it with love. Fill it with compassion. Fill it with service. Fill it with study of the scriptures. Fill that space up with something that's meaningful to you. and that is supportive to you. So concentration, that's the first kind of thing that we can do, is that we can look at our life and all the things that we are paying attention to or that we're not paying attention to. So many times you sit down to watch a movie, maybe with your family or with your friends. Are you really watching the movie? You're just turning the TV on, and maybe a lot of the time you're not really paying attention to what it is that you're watching, so AKA you're wasting time. And you're also wasting your energy sitting in front of the shout box that's sending all of this electronic energy at you, affecting your nervous system with the flashing lights and all of this. In the 1950s, I think it was, late 1950s, they decided that they could send subliminal messaging through television commercials to cause people to buy more product. And I think it was either Coca-Cola or one of the soda companies that was doing this a lot. And you can go on the internet and search this. They use the TV to brainwash you into buying their product and becoming a consumer. So crazy, right? They still do that. Yes, they do. They absolutely still do that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So if you're going to be spending that time with your friends, with your family, doing something, then do something that you can all concentrate on together, where you can be present together. Don't be doing things that are just not a useful use of your time, that are not going to cultivate deeper compassion, deeper joy, deeper presence. Avoid those things that are going to cause more harm. So avoid the reruns of the CSI. Yes, it was a great show for a really long period of time, but look at the violence on there. It was like, wow. I had to stop watching it, like early on, because I was into like all of the anthropology and the criminology of it, and because that's what part of some of what I was investigating, but sitting there and looking at it over and over and over again, it was intriguing to me because it was so acclaimed for its reality. Like the processes that they talked about, that they explained, are actually processes that are used. The problem is the violence. It desensitizes you. And then suddenly you just are not as sensitive to violence as you once would have been. So you become a less sensitive person, and potentially more prone to violence as a result. So avoid those reruns, avoid those kinds of movies that bring us to that place where we're justifying things, we're justifying watching things, we're justifying it. Yeah. Any questions, thoughts, or reflections so far?
I was just thinking how when you were talking about the Red Cross, and how, because I work there too, and how you can become desensitized, and then you can become desensitized with the crime show. And so maybe noticing when one is bringing the ability to serve equanimity, and one is bringing ego pulling. And sometimes,
Yeah.
like in the third part, they talk about the cities, and so you might say, oh, this is the path, but then the ego's grasping the path, and you get confused about what is, what's taking you off, or what you need to, and I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely makes sense. It's paying attention as you're going through the process. And, Buddhism is very big on that, right? They say, look, if you're suffering grief, then be with the grief. Pay attention to the grief. Know the grief. Understand the grief. But understand this too shall pass. So watch yourself as you're going through the throes of life, because you can't really stop most of it, You might be able to bring some good amount of it under your control and become responsive instead of reactive. But the reality is, and all the great teachers through time have said, as long as you're in a physical body, you're still highly susceptible to the reactionary, still highly susceptible to that. So instead of cursing it and being like, oh man, I've been practicing yoga for 3 months, I should have this by now. Yeah, so silly, but so sweet too, to have that thought. Instead of cursing oneself over where you think you should be where you are. And the more present and aware you are of exactly where you are, the less of an impact that's going to have on you. You know, it's like the monster in the closet. It's a frightful thing until you open the door and see that it's not there. So the idea of not progressing, the idea of not being good enough, all of these ideas that fill our head, they're all frightful monsters until we start looking at them. And when we start looking at them, most of the time it's very difficult to find actual validation. Most of the time, whatever belief it is that you have about yourself, it's very difficult to find anything that actually validates that. Great. Your mom told you that you were a brat and you took it to heart. And I'm really sorry that you had that experience. I did too. But there was nothing to validate her statement. And there's nothing presently now to validate it either. Somebody when you were young told you you're not good enough. You're not tall enough. You're not short enough. You're not thin enough. You're not this enough. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. Somebody told you you're not strong enough. And they told you this over and over and over again. When you start sitting with those thoughts and looking at those thoughts, what you find is that the person who said those things to you had no authority to say them because there was no truth there. There was only reaction. And now you're reacting. You're reacting by saying they're the truth. But when you bring mindfulness into it and you look at those statements, those belief systems, when you bring mindfulness into it and you look for validity, there's none there. So you got to start changing your mind now unless you want to follow a lie knowingly, unless you want to continue believing what is unbelievable. And that's an issue if you do. That's something that also needs to be looked at. Does that make sense? Yeah. So whatever belief system you have about yourself, no matter how old or how recent it is, maybe you recently had a breakup or something and the person is constantly telling you how no good you are and how everything in the relationship was your fault. The person who's saying that to you has no authority to say that. What they're saying is not true. It is not true. Even if you did do things in the relationship that were not healthy or helpful and that were actually harmful, still, what that person is accusing you of is not actually true. Because it's not all your fault. Not all. You were an active participant in the relationship, some of which you do have to take responsibility for. But responsibility, not reactability. Responsibility. So if there's something that you did within the relationship that caused harm, then you practice the yamas and the niyamas. You practice truthfulness. You practice non-stealing. You practice devotion. You practice non-grasping. You make whatever amends are possible to be made. And then you understand that whatever else is being reacted to is an emotional reaction that is not completely based in the truth. So don't live by it. Don't let it become your whole life. Don't let it define you. Because then you're not living the truth. You're living at least a good part of a lie. Does that make sense? Does that resonate at all? Yeah. Absolutely. And then when we start looking at those belief systems that we have that really regulate so much of our life right now, and we start deciding, I'm not going to live by that belief. I'm not going to live by the idea that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy enough, that I'm not lovable, that I'm not intelligent, that I'm not authentic, whatever the story is. When that decision is made that I'm not going to live by that story anymore, suddenly your whole life is now open to your reimagination of it. Now you get to find your truth. Don't find your truth violently. Don't look at everybody else and say, I'm going to show you. Because you finding your truth has nothing to do with them. It only has to do with you. So pay attention and embrace concepts such as I am strong enough to be a non-violent person. I am intelligent. I am compassionate. I am lovable. I am inherently good, even if I make mistakes. And even if I do things on purpose sometimes, I'm still inherently good. So start changing the mode of speaking to yourself and let that become a concentration practice. Japa mantra is a beautiful concentration practice because you're repeating the mantra over and over and over again to yourself. And the word mantra is broken into two. Mantra. Man means mind. Tra is tool or technique. It is a tool or a technique for the mind. So the mind has all these thoughts and all these beliefs, and no, I'm not good enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough, playing stories over and over again. And then you start chanting Om Namah Shivaya, and you chant it over and over and over again, or Om Shri Durgaye Namaha, or Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, whatever it is, or Hari Om Jesus Christ, whatever it is. You start chanting it over and over and over again, and pretty soon it's kind of replacing the story, because you can't chant two things at the same time. You can't tell the story of self-hate and the story of love in the same moment. So the story of love starts to overtake the story of hate. And that's the way that the mantra is a tool for the mind, is that it replaces hate with love. It replaces discrimination of the harmful kind with discernment of the helpful kind. It replaces apathy with empathy. It replaces lies with the truth. So the mantra is an amazing concentrative practice. And another one that you can do on a regular basis every day. Just do a short one. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. 108 times every morning. Take 10, 15 minutes. You've got 10 or 15 minutes. Turn TV off. Turn the radio down. Stop listening to the songs that tell you to break somebody's headlights and key somebody's car. Right? That Carrie Ann Underwood song? Oh, God. Yeah, talk about messages, right? You know, the radio plays that 10,000 times a day. So I giggle a little bit, you know, because sometimes when people start chanting, they're like, how many times do I really have to do this? 108 times is a lot of times. I say, how many times do you sing your favorite song? And what is your favorite song saying to you? If it's the Carrie Underwood song, it's telling you how to break somebody's car with a bat. I rather chant the mantra 108 times than sing that song, but I guarantee you the ones who love that song have sung it 1,008 times. And now that action has become normalized to them, even if they don't know it. It's crazy, right? Psychology.
You know, like, you're not good enough, he's going to dump you, oh my gosh, I need him.
It's so true. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so true, Deb, right? Listen to the Sarah Bareilles song, Be Brave. That's a good song. Yeah, that's a great song. Be brave. Just be brave. So listen to the songs that got good messages to them. Listen to them 1,008 times, not the other ones. So any thoughts this morning? Yeah? Any questions? Reflections? It's a lot, right? Yeah. And it is, and it's good, and it's great. You'll never be bored, you know? When I decided to go back to college, I had a conversation with my husband about it, you know? And he was like, you're going to be a lifetime student, aren't you? And I was like, what do you mean? You know, I took a little offense to that. And then I was like, yeah, actually I am. And it's pretty cool, right? So, be a lifetime student. Be a lifetime student. So when I went to him and I said to him, well, what do you think I should go back to college for? There's like all these things I want to do. There's like 10,000 things, you know? And he said, go for anthropology. I said, what? He said, go for anthropology. You'll never be freaking bored. Because he knew, like, my mind goes fast, you know? And so I study it, I get to know it, and then, you know, it's like I'm always looking for the next explanation, the next definition, the next scientific thing. He's like, go for anthropology. You'll never be bored. He should have said, go for yoga. You'll never be bored. He did say that too. But the yoga, you'll never be bored. Because you are an endless onion, layer upon layer upon layer, to be discovered, investigated, explored, redefined, understood again, reunited, separated, reunited, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Be a student of yourself every day and every moment. You will never be bored. Never. And then talk to your ego, the unbalanced part of your ego, and ask it to be a good teacher. It wants something important to do, so give it something important to do. Say, be a good teacher. Teach me this yoga. Teach me all about myself. Let me know all the facets of who I think I am. Put them on display so that I can learn. And then, be a really good teacher. Teach me how to sit silently in meditation. Teach me how to accept the truth. Be a powerful teacher. Don't be a sloppy teacher. And allow me to fall for stories that aren't true. Don't be a sloppy teacher and give me only the tiniest little bit of information and leave me to my imagination for the rest. Be a powerful teacher. Guarantee you, the ego will grab onto that. It'll be like, okay, challenge accepted, man. I'll be the most powerful teacher you've ever experienced. It's okay if it thinks that. It's fine. You know? It's better than it trying to dissuade you all the time, right? The ego is like another person living inside of you. And if you treat it horribly, it will treat you horribly. It'll just keep getting you in trouble. So treat your ego kindly, but keep it in its place. And the way that you keep it in its place is by engaging it in something positive and fooling oneself into thinking that that's the whole point of all of this, you know, and that it can be a leader in some way, shape, or form. I know that's an abstract thought, but it really does work. When I first started to sit down to meditate, and I love silent meditation. It's always been my favorite technique. I just love to sit in silence and close my eyes, and there's nothing. But every once in a while, you know, the ego's there, and it's talking, yap, stories of old, stories of new, stories that never were, stories that never will be. And so one day I just sat there and I said, just be a good teacher for me. Teach me how to sit silently. And suddenly the stories were gone. Try it. You got to tell yourself what you need. And then if you feel guilty because you're investing so much energy in your spiritual practice, and you're like, I should really be doing something else, I should be doing something with my family, I should be doing something for other people, then give yourself permission out loud. Because that makes a world of difference too. When you say out loud to yourself, I give myself permission to pursue my spiritual path with all my energy and resources. I give myself permission to know myself. It helps to alleviate that guilt, which is also unfounded. So I'm gonna stop there on time. Yeah, first time in a long time. And just one more question of any questions or reflections. We're good? Okay. So let's sit tall and close the eyes. Now just concentrate on the breath as it moves in and out. Inhaling, exhaling. And if it's possible for you to do so, bring your breath into either a 5-5 or a 4-6 count. So if you're a generally stable individual and you don't have a lot of emotional stuff going on, then 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. If you do have some trauma or some disturbance happening in life right now, then 4 seconds for the inhale, 6 seconds for the exhale. And use the breath as a mechanism for concentration, counting the inhale and the exhale silently to yourself for the next several breaths until you hear my voice again. And as you continue counting your breath, just noticing the concentration, the dharana that's happening, and notice how the mind is becoming more and more still. It doesn't stop, but it becomes very, very still, very still. And with gratitude for that stillness, you can release the counting now. Placing the right hand on the heart, left hand over the right. With gratitude for the potential of stillness, together we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere find peace, love, light, and happiness. May all beings know their oneness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. Thank you all so much for being here today. So good to see each and every one of you. Thank you for sharing these moments with me, and for sharing your insights. Have a beautiful day. They are still serving in the kitchen. And trainees, the 300s, we will meet at 2 o'clock. In classroom 5, and Ilona and Vani will be joining you, Jeff, for nonviolent communication at 12 to 1:30? 12 to 2. Okay. If you could finish on time, we'll be starting at 2. Yeah, that'd be perfect. I haven't heard from her, but I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.